people have become so unhinged in recent years. It's not just social media. I go into some of that in the book, but I think it goes something like this. We've tried to make the fruits of a liberal ethical system into the foundations of one.
Okay, yes,
so,
yes.
For instance, gay rights, of which I'm gay myself, I'm a supporter of gay rights, I think it's all good, but it's a great product of liberal rights. It's a hideous foundation for them. Same thing with, for instance, women's rights. Great supporter of women's rights. Very glad it's glad we're here rather than 100 years ago. But can it be the basis of a moral system or an ethical system? One of the reasons why I think we've been becoming deranged on this is precisely as you mentioned, this hardware-software thing. The problem is something like this. One of the few things we can all agree on is that we shouldn't be mean to people because of something they can't help.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why we dislike it when, for instance, somebody's rude about somebody who's disabled or taunts them about it. Right. It's a horrible thing to do. Now, things that people can possibly affect, we're iffy on. There's a question. It doesn't mean that we should be rude or unpleasant or anything else, but you're in different terrain. So most rights movements have moved towards this thing of born this way, the Lady Gaga view, as I say. Born this way
means not my fault.
Not my fault. Crucially, a counter to lifestyle choice, and I think that lifestyle choice is something worth countering on this occasion. But born this way says, nothing I can do about it, so be nice. And this has been adopted recently by the trans movement, which says, we are born trans, from childhood we're trans, so be nice. Now I explain why this has happened with trans, and it's fascinating, I think. But at the same time, we are making things that are undoubtedly hardware issues, gender, sex, into software. So things we know are fixed.
Software meaning malleable, things that can be changed by personal will, by cultural environment, and so forth.
It's why the trans issue, by the way, which is such a minority of a minority issue, has become so huge. Because it's demanding two things simultaneously. It's saying something that we're not sure about is absolutely fixed. And one of the very few things we are sure about, sex differences, for instance, is totally a choice. You could be a woman this hour if you'd like.
Right.
And that sort of thing is deranging for because it's asking us to take part in something we know to be a lie. And it is, among other things, enormously demoralizing to people to be made to lie.
And why should it be that there is no, it's almost as though there's no cultural immune system.
That's right.
That what would have been scoffed at, laughed at, single-digit number of decades ago, what certainly would not have been championed by the BBC.
Yeah.
Now, someone makes a claim, Douglas Murray would say, but that's not so, that you don't have any scientific evidence to suggest that at all. And the trans says, no, I was born this way, and you need to accept it. And within 20 seconds, the BBC, that's an official position. Yeah. Why? What happened? What changed? What eliminated the cultural immune system to craziness? Am I being too overbroad?
No, you're understating it.
Oh, forgive me. Go ahead.
The first thing is all the adults left the room. That's a big problem. It became increasingly hard, secondly, to hold concrete ideas up in public. People can sustain the most extraordinary abstract ideas, we see it every day, but they're finding it extremely hard to hold on to concrete ideas because the concrete idea can have a personification right in front of you in the age of social media. So you're not talking about people in the abstract, the person is there. You're talking about this person, for instance. So it's rather like borders. People find it hard to hold on to the hard concepts. But there are a whole set of other things as well. One is, and I think this is absolutely crucial, we shouldn't underestimate the move that has been played by what was a very fringe movement in academia that is now absolutely rampant across America and Europe, which is sometimes called social justice warriorism, sometimes called intersectionalism, and so on. We didn't take this very seriously, but it should be taken seriously in my view, because it is probably the single idea since the Cold War ended that has made most headway and which makes the largest claims for itself. It is an attempt, this is why, the endless thing, women, gays, race, trans, the endless injection of these things into every single public discussion, every political discussion. The fact that we had a defense secretary in Britain who had to resign a couple of summers ago because 15 years earlier he'd been found to have touched a woman's knee, and she asked if he would take his hand off her knee, and he said yes, of course, and he did. But 15 years later, he has to resign. The woman wasn't bothered at all. A journalist said, told him I'd smack him in the face if he ever did that again. And, but this stuff is...
So Douglas, what?
The point is it's everywhere. Yes. And the other thing, sorry, is that it's even in... people have been saying to me for years, oh, but it's just, it's a bit of academia and you over-focus on that. It's just, some West Coast liberal, loopiness. No. Almost every multinational, every corporate, every government, that's right. They are all committed to this now. The commitment to being diverse, being absolutely woke, as we call it, on all of these issues. And the problem about it is, I think it's going to undo all the good that was done. And there are some very clear examples of that.
By building resentment.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, take the obvious one, which I mentioned in the race chapter. It's taken, 50 years to move from Martin Luther King's central moral insight about the nature of somebody's character being the way you judge them, not some characteristic like skin color
does not matter.
Right.
Character is all. That's
Exactly.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, today not so. There was a lecture given the other week at Boston University from an academic who is at George Washington University, I think. Yeah, no, Washington State University. She gave a lecture in which she said people who judge people by the content of their character rather than their skin color are dangerous. Skin color is meant to be everything. And my God, we are hurtling there.
It's a total inversion.
Total inversion.